Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and I hope you are able to see me. Zesco has done their part. I was geared, the studio was set up, we put up everything, the lighting and all. But Zesco has done their part. They have taken the power. So I'm having a little light that is coming from my laptop right now. So I'm sure you're able to get me, and also you'll be able to, you're able to see me. You're able to see me. Um, you just share this broadcast. We have a discussion that we're going to be looking at right now. If you can see the caption, that's a discussion that we are having, or we're going to be discussing this afternoon. Just prepare your contributions. Just prepare your contributions. And also, it's a discussion, so it's not only me who will be talking, but it will be you and me talking, so that we know the reason why some pastors' children are problematic. Or maybe is it because some pastors are just pastors on Sundays, and at home there's something else. What do you think? That's what we're going to be talking about on this live video. Let's discuss that. Zesco has taken power, so I'm using little light from my laptop. That's what I'm using right now. But then that's a discussion. That's a discussion that we're going to be discussing today or this afternoon. Just be free to contribute. Just be free to contribute according to the caption that is in this video. Why do pastors' children seem to be problematic? And is it because that their fathers or mothers who are pastors, they behave in a certain way at home and be pastors at church? What do you think? What do you think? That's what we are discussing this afternoon. That's what we are discussing this afternoon. So I'll need your contributions. I'll need your contribution. Let me also pin the topic. Let me pin the topic in the comment section. Let me pin the topic in the comment section so that we're gonna be seeing it as well, and I'll be reading it the way it is. Or let me just pin this comment. So let's discuss. This is open for contribution, and let me not talk alone. Let's discuss. You are free to contribute, very free to contribute, so that we can learn from each other right here on this video. Let's learn and be able to share this broadcast so that we can learn from each other. So I've just pinned my comment in the comment section so that I'll be saying the exact thing. What do some pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because that some pastors are only pastors on Sundays and at home they are not pastors? That's what we are looking at this afternoon. So let's discuss that. Let's discuss that, and also share the broadcast if you are able to share the broadcast, so that we can have a lot of people watching us and also contribute on this discussion. What do some pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because some pastors are only pastors on Sundays and not pastors at home? Let's discuss that. Let's discuss that. That's what we are looking at today. And before we go any further, I must say that family has got a very huge influence on the way we grow and behave in the society that we are in, and also in the communities where we are in. Let me bring out some certain things that has caused people to behave in a certain way they behave today. When we were growing up, the only things or certain things that we were taught and that were instilled in us was that has caused many people to be forgetting to go to church, and also instead of the day that they are supposed to go to church, they end up washing on a Sunday or a Saturday. It's because Sundays we used to see our parents mostly washing and not going to church. And so it is very hard for some people to be consistent to go to church, because you find them washing on a Sunday and they'll tell you they were washing. That's the reason they didn't go to church. How about those children that have lost touch, where control of the parents is concerned? You find that such children, it's because they were taken to boarding school at a tender age. And so they spent little time at home with their parents and spent most of the time at the boarding school. And so what has been instilled and impacted in their lives is what they learned at the boarding school and not what they were taught by their parents. And so it is very difficult for the parents to control such kind of children. How about the time that our parents were knocking off? For me, who used to be on the copper belt, they're knocking off, they've come with parcels. What used to happen back then was the mother or our mothers won't go and welcome our fathers, no, but they'll send us, the children, to go and get the parcels from our fathers. We are now seeing in movies these things where a wife goes to the husband, gives him a peck, gets the jacket, the parcel, welcomes him home. We see those things in movies. We never saw them when we were growing up. You who's watching me right now, when did you see, as you were growing up, your mother kissing your father in your presence? Or just a peck, welcoming from work? When did you see that? We've seen this in the movies, and now it is this generation that has brought about this thing that they want what they see in the movies to happen in real life, but they are forgetting how the person grew up in their houses. The way we were introduced in certain things in this life from our homes where we grew up from is totally different from any other person. And so that's why it is difficult for people to get to be together and do things together. Okay? Revivalist Regan Nswana is saying, not all pastors' children are problematic. Those who are problematic are familiar with the anointing. So Regan, that's why I said some pastors. I didn't say all pastors. I said some pastors. I'll get to that later as I'm talking about these things that I'm explaining right here. Okay? So, Family Mountain. In the homes where we grow in, it's not all about just going up there and all. Whatever we are taught in those homes, whatever we are taught, charity begins at home. Whatever we learn from the homes is what we bring about in the society. Okay? Let me give you this example. What has got more impact on a child? What has got more impact? Is it the family where the child is coming from, or the church? What has got more impact in the family, in a child's growth? Well, I'm going to answer that one. I'm going to openly tell you to say the family has got more impact on a child's growth than the church. Why? The child spends more time with the family, like 6 days with the family, and only a day at church. So the family has got more impact than the church. So what the family does at home is what will be impacted more in that child as they grow than what the church does. Okay? But before I explain all those things, let me read some comments. And also, the topic is, what do some pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because some pastors are only pastors on Sunday and at home they are not pastors? Let me read some comments. Revivalist says some pastors are too busy. They don't spend time with their kids. Thank you for that one. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Charity says, is this Charity? Let me see the name. Let me see. Charity begins at home. I was at, okay, charity begins at home. I was at a boarding school from 3 till I finished. It didn't change me. Oh, okay, that's Changa. Most pastors do not do what they preach, and as a result their children get to know them for who they really are. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. You see, it's not every pastor that gets to be home and be a pastor. Some pastors, they are pastors at church and they are not pastors at home. Some pastors are pastors at church and they are not pastors at home. Changa Alice is saying fellowship should begin in the household. Other people, you're watching me right now. What do you think about this discussion? What do pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because that some pastors are only pastors on Sunday and at home they are not pastors? What do you think? What causes that? What really causes that? What really causes that? Let's discuss that. Let's discuss that. Contributions are very much open. Contributions are very much open. So let's talk. Let's discuss. Let me not only talk to Changa Alice and a revivalist there. Share the video if you can share it so that we can have people coming. Do we have pastors' children here so that we can also hear from them? Do we have pastors' children right here? What do pastors do in their homes that makes their children to be problematic? Is it because some pastors are only pastors on Sundays, and at home they are not pastors? Let's discuss that one. Let's discuss that one. They really are. That's what I'm talking. Let's discuss that one. Let's discuss that one. Share the video if you can so that we can have more people to discuss this topic. Let's discuss this topic. What do some pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because that some pastors are only pastors on Sundays and at home they are not pastors? What is causing that? And is it because that some pastors' children have learned, like, this is how the world's take it, and they've taken advantage of that? What is it that they do that makes their children to be problematic? Let's discuss. Let's discuss this topic. I know most of the people who say, no, pastors are just human beings and everything. Of course, they are human beings, but let's discuss and stick to this topic. They are human beings, yes. But what makes pastors' kids to be problematic? Is it because... Okay, so I want to read a comment that has come through from Sinkala Katongo. From Sinkala Katongo, my friend. What is he saying? Okay, so he says, it's unfair to place the blame on pastor. Pastors' kids are also human beings who all face the same temptations as everyone else. So Sinkala, I'm actually not even blaming the pastors. Okay, I'm not blaming the pastors, and that's the reason I've said some pastors. I'm not putting it entirely on every pastor. All right, I've said some pastors, not every pastor. There are some pastors and some pastors' kids that are okay, and there are some pastors that are not okay, and some pastors' kids that are not okay. So the thing is this: I was talking about Family Mountain, how we are brought up in our homes where we've grown up. The other point that I had was, I think I even posted on my Facebook account. I said it is easier for a man to beat a woman because he grew up in a family where the father was mistreating and beating up the mother. So it's easier because that's what he saw. That when you want to discipline a woman, you have to beat the woman when she is wrong. Then you are giving her discipline. Okay? Children learn very well by observing. Children learn very well by observing. So what you observed as you are growing up from your home, that's what you start behaving in the society like. That's what you are going to be doing in the society because that's what you saw in the home as you were growing up. It could be good or it could be bad because that's what you were seeing as you were growing up. All right? So what do pastors do? What do some pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because that some pastors are only pastors on Sundays and some pastors, they don't do what they do in church? Okay, so Namo Namonda says it's not really the pastor's fault. Some children decide to go their way in the name of saying, I am not my father. That's very true. That's very true as well. Chipeta Florence, you're saying that's not true. That's your opinion, and that's the reason this is a discussion. So I want people to talk to me. And if you say that's not true, Chipeta Florence, why are you saying not true? Don't just say that's not true without giving a reason. If you're saying no, it's not true, give me a reason. Give us a reason. All right? Don't just say that's not true. Give us a reason. Marine Smith says amen. Some children change learning from outside. Now, Chipeta, let me tell you something. Most children that have failed to be controlled by their parents are those children that were taken. Most of them, I'm not saying all of them, most of them are those that were taken to a boarding school at a tender age. And so they spent little time with their parents, most of the time at the boarding school. So what they have been instilled, or what has been impacted and instilled in their lives, in their heads, is what they learned at the boarding school. And so it is very difficult for their parents to control them. Some of them, not all of them. There are people that have been to boarding school and they are okay in their heads. And there are some that went to boarding school, and when they came back a different person altogether, and they can't get what their parents tell them. They follow what they were taught at the boarding school. Okay? So look at this pastor that you call is just a human being. Okay? He's just a human being. He can face any temptations and everything. So he's only a pastor on a Sunday. When he goes back home, he's not a pastor. My spiritual father yesterday, when we were listening to his preaching in church, he gave an example of a certain pastor's child. Okay? This pastor's kid plays a keyboard. He plays a keyboard, and so he preferred going to play keyboard at a different church and not playing keyboard in his father's church. So that captured an attention to my father. Okay? And so he was asked a question to say, you are a pastor's kid and you play keyboard. Why don't you play keyboard in your father's church, but then you come here to play keyboard? And this is what this pastor's kid said. He said, my father is not a Christian the way you seem him to be. Listen to that. He's not a Christian. He's not a pastor. At home, he beats my mother. He mistreats us, and he insults and does all sorts of things. But this man is a pastor and leading a church. So it's not every pastor that behaves as a pastor at home. Some, they change, they're only pastors on Sundays. So what the children see in the homes is what they grow up. Families have got more impact on a child's growth than the church, because children spend more time with family. And so that's the reason I'm asking, what do some pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because that some pastors are only pastors on Sundays and at home they are not pastors? Okay, so Florence Chipeta is saying, because some children adopt from outside. How children drink like me, I choose my own way, but my mom used to talk. We all learning from the mistake. You can only give a child advice. Oh, okay. Okay. So let's keep discussing that one. Let's keep discussing that one. Michelo Findeko Mutaipa saying, powerful message, Peter Shukombe. Peter the Shukombe, crazy. Yeah, so that's a discussion we are. Namo says, and somehow pastors spend most of their time at church with spiritual children and not physical ones. Children see no need to follow them. You see? Okay. So there is a verse in the Bible that says, train up a child in the way he should grow. And you would see that when you look at a train, it has got a head and a tail. Okay? And so it follows the head wherever it goes. The way it moves, that's the way the rest of the pieces of the train will be moving. And so as the father, you are the head of that family. And so whatever you do, the children will follow. I can ask some questions here. As a father, the way you are living your life and the way you portray yourself at home where you are with your children, do you think you are the best role model? Because you should be the best role model of your children. So what you do in your home right now and your children are seeing what you're doing, do you think you are the best and they'll grow to be better people in the society? And as a mother, the way you behave at home, do you think your children are seeing a better role model and they'll be better people in the society? You can't have your children have role models outside your family and your house. To an extent, the way things have been changed in our society and in our generation today, our children would rather have a Ben 10 face on their birthday cake and not the father's cake or the mother's face on the cake. The way they will refuse to eat that cake, you'll be surprised. Because their role model is Ben 10 and other people they watch on TV, and they can't have their father or mother as their role model. That's how things have been turned out to be in our society today, in our generation today. Okay? Sinkala Katongo says, your boarding school analogy proves that kids have a responsibility to make their own choices. Of course, Sinkala, they have the responsibility to make their own choices. That's very true. But before they went to boarding school, there are certain things that they saw in their father's homes, in their mother's homes. And that's the reason there is a certain age that you're supposed to take your children at a boarding school. Don't just take your children at a boarding school at a tender age. No. Teach them what they want to know, what you want them to know, so that even when they go there, matured already, they will not depart from that which you want them to learn. Or even as they grow, teach them what they want to know at that particular time you are together with them. And when they come back at college, continue teaching at home for holiday. Continue teaching them. Also be able to check on them on phone. Don't just dump them there at a boarding school. No, they learn a lot of things at the boarding school. A lot. Okay, so Chilekwa Demiano says, but again, some children step out of the way on their own. Of course they do. Demiano. But what of the impact that was given to them as they were growing up? What's the impact? How did their fathers and mothers behave at home as they grew up? What did they instill in their lives as they grew up? What do some pastors do in their homes for their children to be problematic? Is it because that some pastors are only pastors on Sundays and at home they are not pastors? That's what we are discussing this hour.